Cracking big dogs. Welcome back to the HQ. Jaman's Nicholas representing. It's probably cut off on the bottom of the screen. Big dogs gotta eat fantasy football. BDGE. We're getting into some of the winners and losers from the 2019 NFL draft for 2019 fantasy football. Now, we've done a lot of coverage on the NFL draft on my channel already. Most of that was revolving around rookies. It was revolving around your dynasty teams and rookie drafts and running backs and wide receivers and whatever. When these teams make these picks, whether they're linemen, whether defensive players or other running backs, late round, early round, they affect players that are on the current teams and the current NFL rosters. Now, since it is the offseason, we've been focusing a lot on Dynasty, and that's what we do during the rookies. That's why we hype them up, and I will repeat this again throughout the offseason. You know, you'll hear these rookies' names a million times throughout the offseason. So for the most part, they get hyped up because you have like a 4-month stretch where no football is going on, and you talk about the same 5 guys that you love: Josh Jacobs, N'Keal Harry, Miles Sanders. Those are the only guys you hear for a long time. So, you know, after hearing them a million times, you eventually start to equate them with a higher value than they actually should have in both season-long, dynasty, redraft, rookie, whatever. But what we're going to do today is break down position by position for 2019 fantasy football, the winners and the losers from the NFL draft. A typical fan of football or fantasy football, they'll know things like, okay, N'Keal Harry was a first-round pick. That's great for the Patriots, whatever. But you won't know things like, oh, this team drafted, an offensive lineman in the first and then in the third, and then they have a backup tight end who's a great run blocker, so this is an upgrade for the running back, whatever. So those are the kind of things I'm going to get into in today's video. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you're new. We're breaking down everything 2019 fantasy football, dynasty, season long, whatever, from here through the rest of the summer into the season. Hopefully winning you your chip, and then into fucking next season, forever, basically. And hit that thumbs up button if you appreciate the video. Let me know who you think some of the winners and losers of the drafts are down below in the comment section if I leave anybody out. So without further ado, let's get cracking. So speaking of dynasty leagues, the Fade the Public Startup Dynasty Draft kicked off this weekend. If you're watching this, I think it's Tuesday. We started it on Saturday. It's the most fucking absurd draft I've ever been a part of. Like, in your startup dynasty draft, there are a lot of trades going on, but we're in the 3rd round. We're at pick like 24 right now. I'm actually on the clock. There have been 24 trades that have already happened in the first 24 picks, in the first 23 picks. So we have 24 trades with only 23 picks. Really out of control, and we're going to get into it on tonight. We're filming the Fade the Public episode for this week, which will be out on Thursday tonight, and we're just going to recap the first 3 rounds of the Dynasty Startup Draft. So if you're interested in Dynasty, if you want to see like kind of what happens behind the scenes, make sure you tune in on Thursday. It's going to be a really funny episode. We're going to recap Game of Thrones and whatnot. It's just been absolutely absurd. So I took Melvin Gordon with the 111. I traded up to the 112 to grab Joe Mixon. So I took 2 backs, bike to bike. I grabbed Julio at the 209. So I have 2 running backs, wide receiver, and then I'm up at the 304. And it is a super flex. Le'Veon Bell is still on the board. So I was thinking of stacking 3 workhorse running backs, but I kind of feel I don't pick again to the 6th or the 6th round. So in order to move up to get like a Joe Mixon, to get those 2 first-round picks, I had to, move some of that mid-round capital. So if I don't take Russell Wilson right now off the board, like, I'm not going to have a good quarterback, or at least like a solid starter at the quarterback position. And that's not, if you're in a dynasty super flex, you don't want to be, and you could always take the strategy where you aim for like 4, late round quarterback picks. But, there's a reason that those guys go so late in the draft. It's because they're very risky at the end. I think Russell Wilson signing that new extension and then bringing on some new weapons, through the NFL draft and whatever, just like him. I know he's a little bit on the older side. He's 30, but nowadays, like, Aaron Rodgers is 36, 37. So if I can get 5 really high-end elite years out of Russell Wilson, that's what I'll probably end up doing. I threw out some trade offers, so we'll see what happens, and we'll know by tonight's episode in Fade the Public. So stay tuned. Sorry, let's get into the video though. So we'll start with the quarterback position since we are talking about Russell Wilson, and I think Andrew Luck was a winner here. I think he just kind of won the offseason overall because he was a dynamite fantasy quarterback for you already in 2018. 2019, they draft Paris Campbell in the 2nd round. Paris Campbell is just going to be another playmaker to add to this offense, right? Andrew Luck, what he did last year was actually incredible. Just thinking about the weapons group that he had. Like, at one point, it was just like Chester Rogers was one of his best targets to throw to. Now, Luck is going to be behind the same starting 5 linemen that were there last year, right? They're going to have more continuity, and I think I think they're going to be the number 1 offensive line in the league by the end of this year. So Luck, one of the best passers, is going to be behind one of the best offensive lines. They bring in Paris Campbell, who brings a whole nother dynamic, an underneath playmaker, right? He's not necessarily like the same player as T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton stretches the field. Now, Paris Campbell has that like 4.3 speed, but he's not someone who excels at catching the ball downfield, right? He had 2 catches his entire Ohio State career of 20-plus yards, which is absurd. But he's going to be used heavily in the screen game. So you have T.Y. Hilton, Paris Campbell. You added Devin Funchess this offseason to be another like red zone threat kind of guy. Jack Doyle will hopefully be back healthy. I definitely am not going to be banking on that. But overall, his weapons group is much more improved this year than it was last year. So I think Andrew Luck definitely comes away as a winner from the NFL draft just with the addition of Paris Campbell. I think he has a legitimate shot to compete with Patrick Mahomes, given the fact that Tyreek Hill is probably not going to be playing with him in 2019. To compete for the overall QB1 in fantasy, where at the beginning of the offseason, right, it was like Patrick Mahomes in the first 2-3 rounds of drafts, and everybody else, Luck, Aaron Rodgers, Wilson, Deshaun Watson in a whole tier by themselves. I think the gap is very, very quickly closed on that. Moving down the quarterback list, we have Matt Ryan, right? The Falcons took 2 offensive linemen in the first round, and that was like a surprising, glaring weakness of their team, where their offensive line had steadily built up and become one of the better O-lines in the NFL, and last year it kind of just fell apart. So they took Chris Lindstrom from Boston College, and then they traded back into the end of the first round, took another offensive lineman. Both of them are very good in the pass blocking game. Adding 2 offensive linemen from the first round is obviously an upgrade to Matt Ryan. They're bringing Dirk Cutter as the offensive coordinator. This is going to be a very, very, very pass-heavy offense. So Matt Ryan, performed really well last year, and I think we can expect another. He had his MVP season and then really fell back to earth the year after that, so he was a big disappointment. And then last year, he went back to being like a late-round quarterback. That was a great pick. And I think if you can get him, again, as like a late-round quarterback, I'm not reaching or putting him up into like the Andrew Luck tier, but if you can get him, from quarterbacks like 8 to 10 in that range, I think Matt Ryan is as safe as they come. Great floor, given that the offense should bounce back in a big way. Of course, he has Calvin Ridley coming into year 2, Julio, Devonta Freeman. I'm not going to be high on him, but we'll talk about him when we get to the running back section. So I think Matt Ryan was another winner from the draft. Lamar Jackson. Now, I know like everyone has the same storyline of Lamar Jackson, horrible throwing the ball, whatever. This team, this offense is completely bought into Lamar Jackson. At least for this year, at least for like the foreseeable future, they're going to give Lamar Jackson the keys to this offense and see how it goes. It is very like fucking zigging when the rest of the NFL is zagging. They want to build around a strong-armed quarterback that is like a pocket guy. We're seeing more athletes come into the league at the quarterback position, but Lamar Jackson is something not. He's not a Russell Wilson. He's not even close to like a Deshaun Watson type. He is his own breed. So I'm really excited to see what this offense does. Coming away from the draft, you could see exactly what their plan was. They wanted to bring speed to this offense. They drafted Hollywood Brown, the wide receiver out of Oklahoma. So say what you want. He has a Lisfranc foot injury. He's small, very small, right? Like 5'8-ish, 5'9", whatever, 175, 80 pounds. Very small. Ridiculous speed, though. We didn't get to see him run at the combine because of the Lisfranc injury, but they were projecting him to run in the low 4.3s. They had Miles Boykin, who absolutely destroyed the combine, a ridiculously high spark athlete. I think he actually outperformed DK Metcalf at the combine. And then they added Justice Hill. Love this kid. Justice Hill, 4th-round running back, fastest running back at the combine with a 4.40 and 40-yard dash. Clearly, they're trying to add speed to this offense. I don't know what this offense is going to look like. They might turn this into an offense where they don't play necessarily downfield, and they do a lot of quick hitting stuff. They do a lot of pass read options where they're getting the balls into the hands of like Hollywood Brown at the line of scrimmage and let him make plays, shit like that. One way or another, whatever you look at it, they added a lot of offensive pieces to a team that might have needed more defensive pieces, but whatever, that's not the point. Lamar Jackson, it can only be looked at as an upgrade because they had absolutely nothing on the offensive side of the ball for him last year between Willie Snead. John Brown is obviously a good receiver, but he didn't utilize them. So they add these rookie pieces, and it might take a year or two for them to really situate themselves, and by that point, we'll know what Lamar Jackson is, but I think Lamar Jackson came away as a winner given what they added to this offense. And then Deshaun Watson finally got some help on the offensive line. They used their 1st-round pick, and then they also used a 2nd-round pick on an offensive tackle. So they added 2 tackles within the first 2 rounds of the draft. That is what we've needed for Deshaun Watson. He's going to get fucking killed back there. He's been, top 5 in the league in terms of QB hits, sacks, pressures over the last 2 years. So Adding to the offensive line was a big win for Deshaun Watson. He's easily in the top 4 fantasy quarterbacks, and I probably couldn't fault you for throwing him all the way up as high as quarterback 2. I think Mahomes, Andrew Luck, Watson, and then probably Aaron Rodgers are that top 4 tier, and Watson is right there. And if they keep adding pieces to the offensive line, his ceiling is, as Snacks would say, the roof. So those are the quarterbacks in terms of winners. Winners. We want winners. And if you're interested in any of my rankings, I put together the Big Dogs Draft Guide. As you may or may not know, I've been doing it for the last couple of years. It is a ridiculously thorough, comprehensive draft guide for your 2019 fantasy football season. I also put together, there's 2 guides. There's the Dynasty Rookie Guide, and there's the season-long guide, depending on what kind of leagues that you play in. The Dynasty Rookie Guide has all of my Dynasty rankings. It has breakdowns and in-depth analysis of all the rookies coming in, as well as a ton of exclusive articles that won't be on the blog or won't be on YouTube, that you'll only get in the Dynasty Rookie Guide, just like how to attack your startup draft, things to avoid when you do start your startup draft, like how to make trades. There's tons of mock drafts that we do, like on video, that won't be up on YouTube. So if you're in a Dynasty or rookie draft, go check that out, BigDogsDraftGuide.com. The season-long guide is a ridiculously good value for you guys, too. It's also up on BigDogsDraftGuide.com. We'll have my top 250 big board for your season-long drafts. It has all of my positional rankings broken down by tiers, like how I was talking about, Watson, Rodgers, whatever, broken down by tiers. That's my top sleepers, my top busts, my must-draft players, which last year were on point. Tons of exclusive articles, too. Key additions to every NFL team this offseason. The Big Dog Bible. That's like 8,000 words. How to attack your draft from every positional outlook. Dude, I don't even know. There's so much stuff is in there. Consistency charts, all this stuff. So go check it out, BigDogsDraftGuide.com. You can pre-order the season-long guide, which drops on July 1st. You will get, I think it's a 20% discount right now if you go cop it prior to July 1st. So BigDogsDraftGuide.com, you'll get everything that you need for your 2019 fantasy football season. Let's talk about running backs. A very quiet winner to this draft, I think, was Christian McCaffrey, because he finally got the big workload last year, right? 219 carries, 107 receptions, so he cracked 325 touches, and that obviously catapulted him into the elite running back fantasy tier. There's a lot of talk about, lowering his workload. I would have been a little bit worried, like had they added a bruiser, like I thought maybe someone like Mike Weber, who went to the Cowboys, would have been added, right? Someone who's got size and can take those in between the tackle carries. They didn't really add a running back. They added Jordan Scarlett in the 5th round. He's not someone you have to worry about taking away McCaffrey's carries. So I think McCaffrey quietly is going to go into 2019 looking at pretty much the same workload as he saw in 2018. I wasn't worried about any of his catches or receptions or targets, going anywhere, but that 219 carries could have dropped to 180 had they used like a 4th round pick on someone that could, run in between the tackles or something like that. So I think McCaffrey's a quiet winner. Marlon Mack, you know how much I fucking love Marlon Mack. I've been talking him up all offseason, and this was a monster win for Mack because the Colts went into the draft with a lot of capital. They had 10 draft picks. They came away with 0 running backs out of the draft. You heard rumors. They were bringing in Jay Ajayi. They were looking at all these other guys. I think they did end up signing Spencer Ware, and I actually love that because Spencer Ware is just the guy at this point in his NFL career, if that. We'll see if he even makes the Colts roster. But behind Mack is just Nyheim Hines and Jordan Wilkins. So Mack comes away. They do not draft a running back, which tells you that it is fucking wheels up, all systems go for Mr. Mack. It is time to eat in 2019. He's going to operate as the featured workhorse there. We saw massive game totals from him when he was healthy last year. I can't be higher on Mack than I am. I'm going to end up being the highest person on Mack all offseason. I'm going to drive his ADP single-handedly into the 2nd round probably, which is going to be a problem. But Mack is a big winner. They did not take a running back. Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is another winner. I don't know what's going to happen in this offense with Zach Taylor coming on, new offensive coordinator as well. None of them have head coaching or offensive coordinator experience. So we'll see what happens with Marvin Lewis gone and, a new offense coming into the place. Zach Taylor is someone that's coming over from the Sean McVay tree. So put into stock whatever you want from that. They took Jonah Williams, the tackle out of Alabama, might be moved around the line, with their 1st round pick. I think it was 11th overall. That was obviously a big weakness for the Bengals, that offensive line. Since they lost Whitworth a couple of years ago to the Rams, they've just kind of gone downhill there, and that's been something that's plagued Dalton, plagued Joe Mixon. Now they're clearly investing into the offensive line with their 1st round pick, so that's an upgrade for the offense overall. They also used their 2nd round pick on a tight end, Drew Sample, after re-signing every one of their tight ends. This was a ridiculous pick. Like, I don't know why they did this, but Drew Sample, this kid, is one of the best blocking tight ends in the class. So throwing him on the line, let him block, let Eifert run down the seam, whatever, if he can ever stay on the field. It's just an upgrade, a small upgrade, obviously. I'm not going to put too much stock into a blocking tight end, but I like that for Joe Mixon because they're clearly investing into protecting whoever's touching the ball behind the line of scrimmage. Damian Williams, in theory, they brought in Carlos Hyde this offseason. That's going to be a red flag for some people. I don't think it's a really big problem. Same way that, the Colts brought in Spencer Ware. He's not real competition to Mac. Carlos Hyde is not real competition to Damian Williams. We saw what Damian Williams can do as a feature back here in KC. I will say, though, the red flag to me was you look at the 2 running backs that the Chiefs did end up bringing on. So they used their 6th-round pick on a kid, Darwin Thompson from Utah State, who I absolutely love. And then they signed Boobie Williams from Oklahoma State. No, that was Justice Hill. Where did Boobie go? Played under Mike Leach. I'm sorry, I forget some of the things. I'm not even editing this. I just riffed for like an hour on these players. I can't remember who the fuck where he played college, but this kid had 202 receptions in the last 3 years at school. He's using Mike Leach's air raid offense in college, and he's an unbelievable pass-catching back, similar to like James White. If you look at the 2 styles of play, right, Darwin Thompson is a guy who, one, can handle a huge workload, but I'm not really, here advocating that he's going to take the starting role over from Damian. But if you look at the 2 guys that added in Darwin Thompson and Williams, it tells me that they're looking to have someone that can take over the passing down role, right? Or at least have that feature there in case maybe Damian Williams struggles. The hype around Damian is that he's going to be the featured workhorse in this high-powered Chiefs offense, right? If he doesn't get, he's not going to get all of the passing work, but if he doesn't get like the majority of it, where you see a guy like Kareem Hunt was getting the majority of it, that's going to be a big hit because that's where a lot of production can come in this offense, right? With Pat Mahomes dumping it off to the running back, and there's just going to be so much space there. So I look at the guys that they did pick up, and in theory, not drafting a running back to the 6th round should be like, yeah, good, great, systems all go. Let's go, Damian Williams. But I'm a little nervous just based on the running backs that they did pick. A team that did not invest in running back again for like the 3rd year in a row, which shocked everybody, was the fucking Houston Texans. Lamar Miller, for like the 3rd year in a row, winner from the NFL draft. They waited until the 7th round to take Demarie Crockett, who is a special teams guy. He's a stud on special teams. He's not going to challenge Lamar Miller or Deonta Foreman in the backfield. Like I said with Watson, they used 2 top 2 picks, so 1st round pick, 2nd round pick on offensive tackles, increasing that offensive line strength. And obviously the question with Miller is, will he be able to stave off Deonta Foreman, who missed almost all of last season with the torn Achilles? He should be back now. He's got another year of rest under his belt after undergoing the Achilles surgery, obviously. But they didn't add anyone in the backfield, which is crazy to me, just given how Lamar Miller has been. He was effective last year. He definitely had some really good games. But like, if you put a good running back, like a really good running back in this offense, they would prosper under Deshaun Watson. But clearly they don't really value the running back position, which I guess props to them on that because it's not a valuable position from NFL standpoint. Lamar Miller, yeah, man, I think like he's just another boring but sneaky good like RB2 floor guy. And Deonta Foreman obviously becomes a great late round guy with heavy upside. I would imagine Lamar Miller is going to enter the year as a starter. It could absolutely, work itself into a complete timeshare split in the Houston backfield, and that's probably what's going to happen. So in that case, you would likely take the cheaper of the 2. But if Foreman's ADP starts rising up into like the 9th, 8th round, I would probably start pulling back. And he's someone that I want later, use later draft capital on because his risk is definitely there, just given the seriousness of the injury. And Lamar Miller has been the clear starter there for a long time. But no running backs added there. Tampa Bay, this other team that I just cannot understand how they don't add a running back here. They used Peyton Barber. They used Ronald Jones last year. It was just a shit show of a year, right? Peyton Barber averages, like 3.8 yards per carry. Ronald Jones had like 23 carries after being an early 2nd round pick for the Buccaneers. It's kind of mind-blowing, right? We have Bruce Arians coming in, and this is going to be a high-powered, like a pass-heavy offense. But a running back, we saw him what they did in Arizona with David Johnson. If they can get it, if they had a guy that was like a workhorse, they would not be afraid to use it. And they obviously didn't see the investment into a running back as a big priority of theirs. I will say Peyton Barber, if you look at his actual efficiency numbers in terms of yards created and missed tackles forced and things like that, he was not as bad as people think. Ronald Jones, I heard something actually really funny. I was listening to a podcast with Evan Silva last week or 2 weeks ago. Actually, I can't remember what the podcast was or who the fuck was even on it, to be honest. And it was someone who's like a high-stakes DFS player, and he was recalling making picks in best ball and just his season-long drafts last summer, so drafting for the 2018 fantasy football season. And this high-stakes DFS player was talking to his friend, and his friend is like the owner of a club, a very popular club in Las Vegas. I believe it was LA or Vegas. I can't remember which one. And it was like right before the NFL season kicked off. And the club owner called his friend, who's a high-stakes DFS player, and told him, stop drafting Ronald Jones. Stop drafting Ronald Jones. He's in my club right now, eating cheeseburgers and getting drunk. He's not ready for the NFL. And I know that might sound silly, but that's a real thing. Like, these players have lives outside of the NFL, and if they're not ready for it, they're going to struggle. And that makes complete sense given Ronald Jones was the youngest running back coming out of last year's draft class. I mean, you're going to have to fact check me on that. I'm not sure if there might have been like a 7th round pick that was younger, but Ronald Jones was 20 years old, I believe, when he got drafted. Super young. You might be immature at that point, and that makes complete sense. And, him not taking care of his body and him not really prepping for the upcoming NFL season could definitely attribute to the fact that he struggled so much. I was not high on Ronald Jones as a prospect as it was coming out of USC. He was not someone that I advocated you guys taking early in season-long drafts. But I think given there's a new coaching staff in place, they might give him another opportunity. We hear the GM coming out and saying that he looks like the best player at camp or whatever. I buy nothing into that at this point. So early still. We'll have reports for the next 18 weeks coming out about both of these running backs and this whole backfield. But I would give Ronald Jones another chance. I will not be picking him with high draft capital. But I think the fact that we knew he wasn't ready, maybe he uses last year as motivation to really get in shape and be like, oh fuck, I can't enter the season the way I did last year and do that again. Peyton Barber had the ninth most rushes in the NFL last year. I'm gonna pull up a tweet that I put out there a few weeks ago that had some info on Peyton Barber. If you're not following me on Twitter, I would suggest you go do that as well, because I'm always tweeting out some ignorant stuff, but valuable. Ignorant, but valuable. So Peyton Barber, my Twitter handle, by the way, is at Nick_BDGE. Peyton Barber in 2018, among 45 running backs with 100 plus carries. He had the 9th most carries in the NFL, 234. The 19th most rushing yards, 871. That's obviously not a good, ratio there. Carries to rushing yards. He had the 5th most evaded tackles in the entire NFL, with 43. He was 10th in evaded tackles per attempt. So obviously, you could be high in the evaded tackles category just because he had so many rushes, but he was also 10th, top 10 in terms of evaded tackles per attempt, 0.18 per attempt. The fact of the matter is this. The reason I'm bringing him up is because I see him in best ball going in the 14th round, literally like an afterthought. They did not draft a running back in that backfield. And Peyton Barber was quietly efficient. He didn't get touchdowns. They did not feed him in the goal line, and he did not contribute much in the passing game. But you think things have to change there. So will there be a running back out of Tampa Bay that emerges and finishes the year as a top 25 back? If I was a betting man, I would say yes. That's not very difficult to do, right? One running back from your backfield to finish the top 25. But both of them are being picked outside of the top 40, 45, 50 running backs right now. So I think both of them are obviously winners. I think both of them will get an opportunity in 2019 to see what they really are as an NFL running back. So I think both of them are good late round best ball picks at the moment. And I think both of their ADPs are going to continue to rise as people realize that they did not add anything to that backfield. So should be interesting. Kenyon Drake, another one who was kind of iffy. We didn't really, know what his role was going to be going into last year, and we still kind of don't know what his role is going to be now because Adam Gase moves from Miami over to New York, and he was horrible handling running backs. Miami didn't use any reasonable draft capital on a running back. I thought that they might use, 3rd, 4th round pick on a guy like Darrell Henderson or something like that. They take Myles Gaskin in the 7th round. So 7th round pretty much means nothing when it comes to running backs. That very, very rarely translate into early playtime or any sort of fantasy production from a running back. So 7th round does not scare me whatsoever. They get Josh Rosen in a trade. However, they don't really do anything else to this offense. It's Josh Rosen, and that's really it. That's the only addition. They don't do anything to the offensive line that's significant. They don't add any playmakers. They signed They re-signed Devontae Parker. They have Jakeem Grant coming back. They have Albert Wilson coming back. Kenny Stills coming back. So it's pretty much the same offense, just Josh Rosen in there at quarterback, or Ryan Fitzpatrick. I highly, highly doubt that Josh Rosen is not the starter there. They probably want to figure out what they have in him quickly and then either move on or not move on, but not the point. They didn't add anything. So it's going to be Kenyon Drake, it's going to be Kalen Ballage, and I know some people are going to get hyped about Kalen Ballage, but realistically, he had one run that he broke out of, boosted his stats, and that people will remember, but outside of that, I'm pretty sure he was at 3.3 yards per carry. So Kenyon Drake comes into the year. Last year, he ended up going for, I think he cracked 1,000 yards from scrimmage. I think he did. He ran the ball 120 times, 535 yards, 4 touchdowns. But he also caught 53 passes, 477 yards, 5 touchdowns. So overall, you're looking at nearly 1,000 yards from scrimmage, 9 touchdowns. And he finished as the overall running back 14 in PPR, which is crazy. On a points per game basis, though, he was like the running back 19. A lot harder to trust than what his, bird's eye view stats look like. He is someone who would give you 21 points one game, then you'd feel confident start him, and he'd give you 2 points. And then you'd be like, I don't know if I do. If you ended up starting him the next game, he rattled off, 3 points, and you're like, fuck, I can't put this guy back in my lineup. And then he'd throw up that 27-point game, and then it's the same thing over and over. So for season-long leagues, it was extremely difficult to trust Kenyon Drake, despite him finishing as the RB14 in PPR overall, which is craziness. Thing is, guys, I know a lot of you guys are going to be excited about it, but again, it's the same offense. Still a bad offensive line. They bring in a defensive-minded head coach. So the offense is not going to be high-powered. They're not going to switch things around like Arizona's going a complete overhaul on things. So Kenyon Drake, I still very much have my, hesitations on, and I'm not going to be reaching into the 5th round to grab him in any of my season-long drafts. He's never had more than 133 carries in a year in the NFL in his 3 years so far, and he never had more than 92 rushing attempts at Alabama. A lot of the times, guys, what players do at college is who they are, right? Most players don't come out of college with, 90 carries being their highest carry total and then all of a sudden turn into a 300 carry back. It's just not in the cards for a guy like Kenyon Drake. As much as you would like to see, right, as a football fan, as a fantasy football fan, I like Kenyon Drake a lot. He's a fun player to watch. He has a lot of the skill set that a lot of workhorse backs that we see in the NFL have. However, he's just never done it before. So for you to bank on the fact or project him to be the workhorse now is ignorant. It's a little bit naive. Frank Gore is gone, right? So that was 150-ish, give or take, 15 carries one way or another. Carries. So the backfield does open up a little bit, but it's hard to see Kenyon Drake getting more than 150 carries this year. If he's still as involved in the passing game, which he probably will be, I like him, but I think you need to treat him more as an upgrade to these Duke Johnson, Chris Thompson backs who are really, really sporadic with their scoring. He's an upgrade to that. I think he's just a little bit more involved in the rushing game, so his floor is a little higher and his ceiling is obviously a little higher on a weekly basis, but he's still very risky because he's very hard to project when to throw him into your lineup. Let's move to the tight end position, and the only one I really have on the board here is Vance McDonald. No tight end was really added to the Steelers until I think the 6th or 7th round. He's not by any means a good pass catcher, so Vance McDonald was a guy that, like Kenyon Drake, has never really been able to prove it throughout the entire NFL offseason that he can handle the full workload at his position. Last year, he did have a pretty nice breakout season by most standards. He finished as a top 10 fantasy tight end. I think he was the tight end 10 in a very weak position overall for fantasy. But now Jesse James is gone. Antonio Brown is gone, and they add some random weapons in there, right? They have James Washington moving up in the depth chart. They had Deontay Johnson, but none of them are proven entities. So Vance McDonald is a guy who couldn't stay healthy his entire career. He is older now. I think he's 27 or so. So there definitely are red flags, and he's dealt with a plethora of injuries here. But the fact that they didn't take a tight end kind of tells you that they're okay using him as the main weapon as the pass catching tight end. So moving Jesse James, a lot of targets open with Antonio Brown gone as well. McDonald is a playmaker. We've seen him make plays, and I think this was a win for him. So that's the only tight end I have. I don't know if I dove deep enough in to see if there were any other winners there, but we're going to move on to the losers in a sec. If you have any other winners that you think I left off on this list, drop them in the comments section below. Would be much appreciated. And while you're down there, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are new. And make sure you check out BigDogDraftGuide.com. Breaking down everything you need for your 2019 season. Let's talk about losers. Todd Gurley. People are still set on Todd Gurley being a first-round pick. Please fade Todd Gurley as a first-round pick in your fantasy leagues this year, guys. We had Dr. Jesse Morse come on. We had him tell us that the arthritis in his knee is a big deal. The Rams literally told you that was the case by trading up in the 3rd round, taking Darrell Henderson, the 2,000-yard back from Memphis, in the early 3rd round, the 3rd running back off the board. Darrell Henderson is going to be, I'm pissed because on Fade the Public last week or 2 weeks ago, I talked about Darrell Henderson being a great pick in rookie drafts because I think he's going to be. I don't think he'll ever get the workload of a fully featured back, but I think he's an Alvin Kamara to the Saints offense, but in the Rams offense. Going to take a lot of the pass catching work and a lot of explosive plays. And Gurley's not really an explosive player. He's not someone who breaks away and gives you that 40-yard run. But Darrell Henderson did that like 85 times in college. So Darrell Henderson kind of comes as the Kamara guy. And then we saw a report that came out a couple of days ago that they see Darrell Henderson being an Alvin Kamara type back for their backfield. And I see that as the case. So Todd Gurley is going to lose touches, and or they're very concerned about his knee, clearly by matching the offer sheet on Malcolm Brown and then trading up to take Darrell Henderson in the 3rd round. So huge red flag for Gurley there. LaShawn McCoy obviously fell off really hard last year. Then they used their 3rd round pick on Devin Singletary. They signed TJ Yeldon in the offseason. So more competition. He's technically still a starter, but LaShawn McCoy is nearly undraftable at this point in fantasy. Jordan Howard got traded to the Philadelphia Eagles this offseason in exchange for a 6th round pick. And then the Eagles went and used a 2nd round pick on Miles Sanders, who I absolutely love. That's a huge, hit to Jordan Howard. Had they not drafted a running back, which was obviously never going to be the case, obviously we're going to draft a running back in the draft this year. Jordan Howard, obviously his fantasy outlook would be a lot better. Now I think he's probably on my do not draft list, but he's not anyone that you can get excited about because he's not going to get any passing work. And now Miles Sanders is like the big play guy, receptions, and might just overall take those like 1st and 2nd down carries as well. Similar situation, Mike Davis, who was someone that a lot of people kind of bought into when he signed with Chicago. They get rid of Jordan Howard. They bring in Mike Davis, who is arguably Jordan Howard with a receiving skill set. We saw him do it in Seattle last year. And then they draft David Montgomery in the 3rd round, and David Montgomery is basically a better version of Mike Davis in the running game and in the passing game. So he makes Mike Davis pretty much redundant. So Mike Davis went from someone that, you can throw an early round, mid-round dart at probably in the 7th round and hope that he becomes the guy in Chicago to someone who's basically undraftable and just a handcuff to David Montgomery. So he's a big loser. James Washington, another big loser, in my opinion. He may, come into that wide receiver 2 role, but the fact that they signed Dante Moncrief and then a year after using early capital on James Washington, use early 3rd round capital on Deontay Johnson, another wide receiver that they're going to throw on the outside probably. It's not good for James Washington. It kind of seems like they're telling you that he's probably not ready to take over a bigger workload. They want more competition there, and they're going to be using more guys to fill in that Antonio Brown gap that's going to be left there from the 169 targets that he did leave. So James Washington, another loser in my eyes. The last guy I have on this list in terms of losers, Corey Davis. Huge loser, right? It feels like we've been waiting for him to break out for like fucking 8 years now. Top 10 draft capital, obviously, by the Titans. This is just an offense that does not throw the ball, right? They've been like 28th or worse in terms of like passing volume, pass attempts since Mariota's taken over in 2015. And now they take A.J. Brown with 2nd round draft capital. I wish A.J. Brown went anywhere but Tennessee. He is like my favorite wide receiver coming out of Ole Miss in this class. There's just like no downside to him. He's 6 foot, 225 pounds, massive size, really good speed, great production profile coming out of college. Now he comes in and he's going to compete with Corey Davis on the outside because they also signed Adam Humphries. So it's like a very low volume passing offense that's probably going to rely on the run with Derrick Henry. And now they just add more weapons to the mix. It's almost impossible to see Corey Davis become like the guy now, even given his draft capital. He had like a 27% target share last year in this offense and still ended up finishing as like the wide receiver 30 in fantasy. So if you're not going to do it with elite target share numbers like that, like 27% of the targets in an offense, I think it was between 26, 27, are like top 5, top 8 numbers on a yearly basis, right? That's like the Julios, the Mike Evanses, the Odell, like that's the type of target share that they get in their offenses as the respective wide receiver 1. Corey Davis got it and still was miserable. So you add more weapons to the mix in A.J. Brown, who I think is arguably as talented as Corey Davis. It doesn't look pretty for Corey Davis. So he drops to probably like a 9th double-digit round guy, and he might just not be on my do not draft list depending on what his ADP is. I think that's pretty much all I had on my list. I'm sure I'm missing out on some guys. That's why y'all are here, right? This is a community-based channel. I want to hear from you guys. I learn from you guys as much as hopefully y'all learn from me. If you did, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new. It's Tuesday now. Fade the Public podcast will be out on Thursday, and then probably a mock draft video on Friday. As soon as June kicks off, we're going heavy. 5 videos a week, my friend. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Getting you prepped everything for your NFL draft. And if you are interested in joining Dynasty Leagues, I have partnered up with Team Stake as well as Flea Flicker to do paid Dynasty Leagues right now. They are available. Patreon.com/BDGE to go check out more information on that. You'll be able to find a post that I put up a couple weeks ago with more details. Or if you head over to my channel and just type in BDGE Dynasty, you'll have a video that pops up that gives you all the information you need. If you are interested in joining Dynasty for the first time, I got to see if I got any trade offers while I'm on the clock. Ooh, that's not good. So that's going to wrap it up. Again, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I will see y'all Thursday.